All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted one-on-one from my still unnamed news studios here in Columbus, Ohio. And pretty cool day today. I've been teasing it a little bit on social media, but let my guest introduce himself. For many people, he needs no introduction, but let me go ahead and let my guest introduce himself, and we'll go from there.
My name is Chad Fisher. I am the lead pastor of RockCity.church here in Columbus. Married to my wife Katie for I think 17 years.
We can edit.
It's about 2003. Pass. 2003. We were married, and then I've got two kids, two daughters, Morgan and Macy, who are 11 and 13. So life is full right now in the Fisher house, but in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chad mentioned it. As everybody knows, if you've listened to this anytime, watched anytime online, you know that we have an underwritten rule that you can just say pass if there's any question I ever ask, and we understand that's just something we can't answer. Marriage I don't know, that's a first for me. So, but we all get it. We all get it. So it's all good. It's all good.
17 years.
There you go. All right. So, and we can always edit. So, although I don't have the editing team that you do, so might need some help. But no, so you mentioned it. Life is full, and it's very full. And I wanted to have you on really a lot because, COVID hits, and we'll get into that. Like, we're going to kind of start and then go way back in history, I think, and that is, Rock City has been a beacon for so many people. Thanks to the online presence, thanks to ABC6. And so a lot of people are being introduced to Rock City for the first time. So I thought it'd be a good idea. Can we go back to the very beginning to living in a van down by the river days of Rock City? And, and you don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but can you give us for a lot of people, they don't know where Rock City started and all those things. Can you just kind of give us that quick story?
Yeah, it started, I was pretty young. I mean, I still have my journal entries from 19, 20 years old, just spending time with the Lord, feeling this call to start a church. But I didn't know anybody who had started a church. At least I didn't think I did. I actually knew people who did, but it never clicked because I had never started anything from scratch. So when you've never started anything from the ground up, you might know people that have, started a business, started a church, whatever. But if it's already in existence, it's almost hard to compute. How do you go back to when there was nothing and then you create something out of nothing? So I had this dream, but I didn't know what to do with it. My wife and I got involved in ministry in the city of Toledo. We were in full-time ministry at a church for about 5.5 years. And this feeling, though, kept coming up. And so actually we weren't living in a van down by the river, but we were in a car with our I think she was about 6 weeks old baby at the time, Macy. She was in the back seat. We were driving through the Blue Ridge Mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. And at that time we were in Asheville because I had read a lot about like the early Jesus movement in the 70s, where a lot of like modern worship came from that movement. It was just this awesome just move of God that started on the West Coast. And Asheville looked like a similar city, had a similar vibe. At the time we were confident, okay, the Lord is calling us to start a church, but we need to know where. And so we started visiting cities that we thought might be able to host a new church for my generation. The whole heart behind Rock City was, and the reason I think the Lord started speaking to me at a young age is because I had grown up in the church. I'd gone to a Christian school through 8th grade, and then I went to a public high school. But as I began to mature and got into those late teens, early 20s, I started looking around, and most of my Christian friends that I'd grown up with, same education as me, same upbringing as I had, so many of them were falling away. I think one of the reasons they were falling away is because we were all looking at a church that looked a lot different than us, a church that was a lot older than us, a church that was just didn't have a lot of relevancy for where we were as young adults at the time. And I just remember in those early years, just writing in my journal, God, what our generation needs is a church on a Sunday, a church that, will will show people Jesus and preach the word and stand on that solid ground of faith, but also that will engage every generation. So our intent wasn't to just launch a young church. Our intent was to launch a new church that would focus on reaching young people. What we found at Rock City is when we reach young people, the more young people we reach, we then see parents and grandparents walking through the doors wondering, what in the world is my son or daughter doing in church? We tried for years and years and couldn't get them through the doors of a church. So anyway, back to Asheville, we were driving through the Blue Ridge Mountains, and we had the name. We felt like Rock City was the name God gave us. We didn't know what city. And it was right on that drive where we just weren't feeling Asheville. We had just come from Atlanta. We weren't feeling Atlanta. And my wife said, what about Columbus? And the only way I can explain it was our whole outlook changed. The atmosphere in the car changed. We went from feeling anxious and homeless to realizing, oh my gosh, like, it's Columbus. I don't even know why. It just, the mention, after mentioning and praying over and researching and visiting a ton of cities outside of the state of Ohio, which we've been born and raised in Ohio, the mention of this city was enough. And so we went back to our hotel that afternoon and started researching Columbus. The very next weekend, we visited for the first time, and just so glad we made the move, because it's been quite a journey. So
yeah. And you guys started with a small team, right? It was 11, 12, 15. Help me remember. It was,
yeah, we moved here in June 2010.
2010.
And then we had our first public service April 3rd, 2011. So not quite a year later, but almost a year later. And so over the span of that, from June to April, we built a small team. We finally got it up to about 40 right before we launched the church. So the night before we launched the church, we had 40 people on our team. But man, early on, I think there were 9 adults that moved with us. So my wife's sister and her soon-to-be husband were the first to move. They didn't have any kids yet. We had 2 really little kids. And we had a few friends of ours come from Toledo to Columbus for a season to help us plant. And so I think it was 9 adults at the time. And then over the course of those 9-10 months, just adding people, just like 1, 2 at a time. Our neighbors, when we moved into a condo in Hilliard and Mill Run, a cool thing. So we move into our condo, and I tell my wife, like, I don't want anybody to know like what we're doing here, because it's like as soon as your neighbor finds out you're a church planter, you're a pastor, it's like, oh my God, I live next to a pastor. Like,
yeah.
So my goal was to just kind of like get to know people first. And so we see our neighbor out. He's out with his kids, and my wife says, "You need to go talk to him." And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Go on, just go be neighborly and go talk to him." And so I walk outside convinced, like, I'm not going to tell this guy what I'm here for. I'm just going to be friendly. And so I introduce myself. He says, he tells me, his name. "Hi, I'm Jeremy." I said, "I'm Chad." And he's like, "So you guys just move in?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Where are you coming from?" I said, "Toledo." He goes, "Okay, well, what are you here for?" And I said, "Work." He's like, "Oh, really? What kind of work do you do?" And I could sense like I'm getting backed into a corner. I said, "Well, ministry kind of work." And he's like, "Well, is it a part of a church?" And I said, "Not really." He's like, "Well, what do you mean not really?" Well, we're actually going to be starting a church. And it was so crazy, because I just saw Jeremy this last weekend, like on the 3rd row.
Mm-hmm.
His first statement was, "Wow, you're going to start a church? Well, look at all this shared green space we have at this condo. We could set up chairs in our backyard. Let's just start it here." And I said, you want to help us start a church? And he's like, "That sounds awesome. My wife and I are in."
Yeah.
And literally that was the conversation.
Yeah.
He knew nothing about the church.
Right.
And so, but literally, like, they were in from day one. And so we would have these little meetings trying to interest meetings, trying to get people involved. And we would use their condo right next door for childcare, send all our kids over there. And then they'd come over to our side, our condo, and we would talk about planting a church. So small beginnings for sure, but really met some good people. Still a ton of the team that was here from at the very beginning are still a part. Like you and your family, you were a part, I think year one, like just a few months in maybe. So
yeah,
it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, and so Jeremy's now been mentioned. I should do a podcast with Jeremy, because this is like the second or third podcast his name has come up on, just from random circles. And but no, I had the blessing of baptizing Jeremy. So just an incredible guy. And I remember those early days, and I wrote in my little note scratches over here. I'm old enough to remember when you used to lead worship, take your guitar off, like go backstage, so to speak, in the movie theater, take your guitar off, put your Janet Jackson microphone on, and come back out and preach. And most people were like, man, that guy preaching looks just like the guy that played guitar.
So, I used to like throw on a different shirt. I would run around to the back hallway at the Lennox, throw on a different shirt, put a microphone on quick, and then make it out before the like bumper video would end. And some people would be every Sunday for months and not know that it was the same guy doing both. So I think that's a win.
Yeah. Those were the early days, right? And it was the church in the movie theater. For a long time, it was the church that met in the movie theater, which RIP to the Lennox, by the way. I don't know if you saw that it was, I guess apparently it's closing. So, but a really, really great moments and memories and start. That was where everything started. It's almost like leaving your first home, and so the church expanded from there. And so let's fast forward. I mean, we're going to fast forward through a lot of, I'm sure, great memories and hard work. I love what's right behind you, because we're going to talk about that in a second. Some of your leadership style that I've even equipped in what I'm doing now. But let's fast forward. So now you've got how many locations? And like where are you? So that was the early days. We're going to skip a whole lot of history that I'd love to have everybody learn all that history, but we'll fast forward through everything to where we are today. Where are we at today with the church? And I think you said 10 years old now. Where is everything at now?
Yeah, the church is, we just celebrated 9. So from April 2011. So 9 years. We'll be celebrating 10 this next April. But so we're in 3 locations right now in the short north. We have a location, and then Hilliard, we have a location, and at Polaris. So, all 3 are, permanent facilities, which is important because when we launched, at one time we had locations at the AMC Lennox movie theater, the Regal Cinemas on Georgesville Road, and the Fawcett Center at Ohio State. All 3 of those, and we were live streaming and simulcasting the message into those 3 locations. So that was an interesting time. And we've been at Upper Arlington High School. We've been in lots of different places, but now we're in Hilliard, Short North, and Polaris. And like I said, the more that the church reaches young people, the more multi-generational the church is going to be, because what happens is, the older we get, and I'm recognizing, I'm 39, so I'm still in my 30s, so I still claim to be young, but I realize, as I look around even at a lot of our team, they're a lot younger than me, and I'm inspired by their creativity. I'm inspired by their energy, the way they think, their innovation, and generally that's the case. I mean, the stuff that you see on television, the stuff that you see in culture, it's driven by this youthful vibrancy, and so older people tend to be inspired by the good creativity that comes from younger generations. It's not always the other way around. What I recognize in older generations, and I've always been very intentional about surrounding myself with older people as well, older mentors, older pastors. It's so important. It tends to happen best when a younger person reaches out to an older person versus the other way around. We're both intimidated by each other, but I've found when a young person reaches out to an older person and says, "Hey, I want to learn from you," that just opens so many doors. So as we're learning from our elders, as we're learning from pastors who've been successful in ministry and have lasted in ministry, as we're learning from churches that are, a step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 10 steps ahead of us, we're able to run faster and farther. And then as we reach young people, we're seeing parents and grandparents and great grandparents walk through our doors, just so overwhelmed by, man, it's been 10 years since my child was a part of a fellowship of believers, and since my child was living for the Lord. And now we're seeing our child, engaged in worship. We're seeing our child giving and serving, and we're seeing our child posting things on social media about what they're a part of. And so it's really inspiring to see. Well, because what more does a parent or a grandparent want than to see your kids and your grandkids loving Jesus and following Him, being a part of a community of faith. It's so inspiring. So we have a very, very multi-generational church that I'm proud of, and it's been wild. It's grown a ton since those small beginnings, and but the more that we grow, the more we're able to accomplish, and the more generosity we're able to extend into our community and beyond, and the more people we're able to serve. So for us, it's not about getting bigger. It's just about doing more and reaching more people. And so the more people we reach, the more people we serve, and the more places we're able to go and be generous. And so it's been a lot of fun.
And I think it's been very interesting. And let me, real quick, you mentioned those 3 places were all temporary places, and the 3 that you mentioned now that you're in are all permanent, right? They're permanent fixtures. So it's not a set up and tear down days and loading the truck days. You're in permanent locations. And so that is a great point, because I think, and I've had some other pastors on, I've always asked the question, what was it like leading during a pandemic? And I know you actually touched on this, I think, in your year-end review, in the celebration a few weeks ago. You talked about how, and I thought it was really cool, because you had the legacy offering last weekend, and a large part of that legacy offering equipped you. So legacy offering a year ago equipped you for a pandemic that none of us knew was coming, to be able to flip a switch and be on ABC6, to be on a channel in Dayton, which I don't know off the top of my head, to be able to go live and stream online and do all those things that you weren't quite ready or had not set up yet. You were able to do that thanks to, things like the legacy offering and people's generosity. And so I think anybody, and I see this a lot on social media. I've seen a lot of friends that I don't believe attended Rock City before, but have said like how much they look forward to Sunday mornings now, and they'll have a picture of their TV in their living room and it's ABC6. So how important has that been in the pandemic to have those avenues for this church?
Oh, it's been huge. I mean, when COVID hit, our auditorium, our auditoriums were empty, right? So it was a surreal feeling. We weren't actually doing anything online or on television before COVID. We decided on a Thursday to cancel the weekend services, the in-person services on a Thursday. And by that Sunday, we were online. 2 weeks later, we were on ABC6. We'd never done that before. But the team just figured it out, and I say the team. I'm talking the team, not me. The team figured it out. But our auditoriums became warehouses. I mean, our main auditorium that we were used to seeing, 1,700, 1,800 people crammed into a 1,400 seat auditorium. It was pallets and pallets of food and resources and supplies that were being distributed all across our city. It just, for us, it really just showed the heartbeat of our church, because when, as COVID was happening, as the shutdowns were taking place, everybody's quarantined, there's all sorts of financial uncertainty. We had a decision to make. Okay, we don't know what tomorrow looks like. We don't know how financially stable the church is going to be over the next 6 months, or could be a year. Nobody knows how long this is going to happen. So do we hold on to everything? And do we start to save up, and do we start to put away and store away just to make sure, cut back? Or is this an opportunity for us to practice what we've always preached? And really, I think we do a better job when we preach what we practice, but it's easy to practice generosity and like godly stewardship when things are normal. This was an opportunity for us to really put the Lord to the test. We just said, listen, we're not going to hold on to what we have. We're not going to start storing away. We're going to actually just step up even more. So the church just became a conduit of blessing and hope and resources to our city and beyond, more so than I could have ever dreamed or imagined. And the result is we gave more, we served more, we entered more spaces than ever before. We took on more projects and put more resources into serving our city and places around the world than ever before. And the generosity and the giving in our church just continued to increase, which meant we could do more and more and more. And that is what God teaches in his word. It's like the more you give, the more he gives. It's like he gives not to the church, but through the church. We're not meant to hold on to anything. We're meant to just be stewards of all that belongs to God. And what this season has taught me is that when God says I'm faithful and I'm faithful all the time, and I'm good and I'm good all the time, that's just what we've seen. As difficult as it's been, and we've all dealt with anxiety and worry and fear and insecurity and trouble and loss and sickness. We've all dealt with all of that. Life is hard, but even in the hardest, most difficult seasons, God is good and he's faithful. And it's been quite a blessing to lead in such a crazy time, because we can see like the light of Christ shines brightest in the darkness. And matter of fact, I'm preaching this on Christmas Eve, but that verse in Isaiah that says, "For unto us a child is given, unto us a son is born." If you rewind just a few verses prior, the prophet Isaiah is actually painting a picture as to what the world looked like when he gave that prophecy 700 years before Jesus is born. And he says that people were living in a great darkness. People were living in dark times. And then he says those living in the land of deep darkness. So he says people were living in dark times. And then he says, and for those living in deep darkness, sometimes life is dark, sometimes it's deep dark times. Right. And I think that's what we've been in, is a deep dark time. But he says those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. Yeah. Like a light has come. And that's who Jesus is. And that's what Jesus does. He illuminates, and you see him so much clearer in the darkness. Yeah. And that's been our story.
Incredible. And I look forward to Christmas Eve. And while you're talking about that, let's talk about Christmas Eve. Anybody watching, listening, and some of it maybe after Christmas, and if so, hope you had a wonderful Christmas. But anybody listening prior to Christmas, what are all the dates and times, and how do people get signed up for it?
Yeah, you can go to our website, RockCity.church.tv, and you can reserve your seats. So we are offering the Christmas Eve experience candlelight service at all three of our locations. I know that we have times at 11, 1, 3, 5, and 7. I don't know if it's all three locations, but there's variations. Go to our website to find all the times. Those are for in person. We're gonna broadcast our worship experience online all day on Christmas Eve, so you can watch it from your home, but it's always best experienced in person. Yeah. So it's an incredible. It's the best one we've ever put together. It's peaceful. It's inspiring. It's incredible. But then on Christmas Day, at 6 and 8, I think there's 2 opportunities in Columbus to watch on Christmas morning at 6 o'clock in the morning if you're up early, and at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then in Dayton, I believe it's 9 and 11.
Nice.
Could be wrong, but again, if you go to our website, RockCity.church.tv, all the times and locations will be there. But so yeah, we'll be broadcasting that Christmas Day, all day, Christmas Eve online, in person. And I would encourage you to be in person if you can, if you're able. You won't regret it. It's going to be pretty spectacular.
It usually is. And it's such a great way. I mean, our family's made it a tradition for many years. It's just a great way to kind of get in the mindset, on Christmas Eve. And the thing that keeps coming to me is a weary world rejoices, and I just feel like we're a weary world. It's hard to say that quickly, but we are a weary world. And I know again, it's a holiday, but at the same time, I think it's a chance for many of us that have that hope to really be reminded that a weary world rejoiced, as you said. And so I don't want to steal your sermon, but that's how I'm approaching this week, and even the end of the week and Christmas Eve and Christmas, is knowing that we are a weary world, and but we do have something to rejoice. So let me transition really quick, because you've been generous enough on this day to give me your time. And by the way, I forgot to mention that one of the most requested. I not that I do requests like top 40 requests, but I do get people like, hey, when are you gonna have Chad on? When are you gonna have Chad? Probably the one I've heard the most is when is Pastor Chad gonna be on? So thank you for being on with us. But I do a couple of quick things. One, I think the thing that impressed me from day one has been a leadership style that you have. It's on the wall behind you. And that is, I think you have pushed the boundaries when so many people said, no, that doesn't, no, don't do that. Don't do it. You have pushed that. And I'll give examples like 1 for 1, right? That was absolutely mind blowing for people. And for those that don't know, can you just explain real quick what is 1 for 1? If I've never been to Rock City before.
Yeah, early on, we were heading into our first January. So we launched in April. Coming into our first January, we were recognizing, okay, it's going to be our first official full year. And I was just looking for a way to model generosity, so that people, when they looked at the church, could see active generosity being played out. And I was actually having a conversation with a mentor of mine who was pastoring a church of about 11,000 people at the time. And he had this idea, but was struggling to pull the trigger on it. Being a church of 10,000, knowing that, man, we've not built up to this, so financially we don't know how we're going to do this. And the idea was, for every person who walks through your doors on a weekend, give $1 to meet a local or global need. So at the time, we had 300-400 people walking through our doors on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So if 311 people were at church on Sunday, we would just 1 for 1, we would give $311 to meet a local need that week. As the church grew, we even started adding, kind of saving up some weeks. So we might give a $300 check to a single mom to buy groceries. And then sure enough, she would write a letter to the church or give a thank you, whatever, and say, would you share this with your church? So next week, we would say, hey, church, last week through 1 for 1, we were able to give $311 to a single mom. Here's what she wants you to hear. And she would, we would read her thank you. Sure enough, before I would leave, somebody would find me in the lobby before I left. And hey, Pastor Chad, we just wanted to make sure, was it 311 or was it 312? 311. Okay, here's a check for 311. I want you to buy that mom groceries again. Or here's a check. I want to cover all of that.
Right.
So what happened was, we would minister to somebody. We would impact somebody's life, and then the church would just step up and just, let's do it again. Let's do more of that. Then we would save up weeks, and we might save the whole month of June. One time, we always have police officers at all of our locations, just for safety and just safety for our kids mostly, but for our church as a whole, and for parking issues, right? So getting people in and out of the street. And anyway, we just kind of heard about, through one of our relationships with the police officer, that the Columbus City Drug Task Force Unit, they were using PPE that was from the World War II era. So they had Kevlar vests and helmets and stuff that were from World War II, literally World War II. So we just, in conversation one day, realized, man, you guys are using terribly old equipment. And so we just asked, how much might it cost to purchase all new gear for the entire drug task force unit in our city? They gave us a number, and we said, well, man, that might take 4, 5, 6 weeks. But we're gonna designate 1 for 1 to bless your unit. And so whatever number of weeks it took, that's what we did. And we were able to give them the money to buy all new equipment. And of course they wanted to then come to our church on a Sunday morning and stand in front of everybody and just say thank you. I think they gave us a plaque or something and just say thank you. But from the single mom, the family struggling, to a police task force that needs new equipment, it was just a way for us to just almost get creative, especially as the church grew and grew. It's like, wow, okay, now it's like it's more and more, so we can accomplish more and more through this 1-for-1 thing. What can we do this week? What can we do this month? What can we do this summer to really make an impact? And that honestly is just a tiny fraction of the generosity of our church. So it's just that's not all we do. I think it was almost 20% of our entire operating budget last year went beyond our walls, outside the walls of the church. So but it is a part, and it's a fun part.
It's a big part. I think for many, that is what drew so many people in, especially initially, because there's so many different churches, and there's a lot of great churches and a lot of great pastors. And I think that's what drew a lot of people in. Something's different. And as you said, you guys were putting your money where your mouth was. This wasn't just talk anymore. It was like, wait a minute, that's really cool. And then I think that is just, and as you said, over the years, there's so much we could cover of all the amazing things that generosity has done. But again, it took a vision, and it took sticking to a vision, when I think there was probably a lot of people that said, that's not sustainable. You can't do that on a church's budget. Like, how many churches could not sustain that kind of a giving, But again, that's that run fast. That's that push hard that you have. I remember, you talked about going to 2 services, and there were people that said, you're never going to like that. Come on, we're not getting enough in one right now. Why would you go to 2? Next thing you know, you got 2, and then you got a remote theater down. We ended up taking another theater and remoting down that's that push that you've always had. And I think, for those that are willing to not necessarily listen to everybody that says, don't do it, you can't do it. All the people that say no, when you have a vision, that's something that I really respect, is that sticking true to that vision. It may not always work out, but I think in Rock City's case, time and time again, you've had a vision, you've had the courage to stick with that vision, and look at where Rock City is today. And there's story after story after story that will support why you did what you did. Right. And I think
I would rather try and fail than not fail because I didn't try. Yeah. And I'll give you an example of when we failed because we tried, and then when we didn't fail. The second service was a great example. We launched in April. With one service at the Lennox, we were in a 520 seat auditorium. We weren't even filling up half of it. Yeah. But coming into September, just a few months after launch, we looked at just national church data. People tend to come back to church in the fall. In the summer, everybody's on vacation. Summers tend to be low. We launched right before summer, so we're running low. I think we were 180 to 220 people total. And that includes kids and other theaters. So in a 520 seat auditorium, doing one service, you might have 140, 150 people in that service. But our team just said, look, like we're supposed to grow in the fall. And if we grow in the fall, why not give people the option of a second service? I know we're not filling up this one, but if we wait until we fill this one up, we may never fill it up. Yep. Let's just kind of be bold and try something. And we did. And our church doubled in size almost the week of, like, we literally went to a second service and our church just about doubled in size that week. It took us a few weeks. We were well past doubling in size. And on our 1 year anniversary, we launched a third service. And we ran fast. But then one time when it didn't work was we were in the short north, and we kind of took on an older church that we renovated. Still has pews in it and everything. It's a cool church, but right off of High Street, 5th and High, and I think we can fit about 500 people in there, cramming them in, and so we were cramming them in, man. Like, we were probably, I think we were running about 1,500 people in that short north location, and over multiple services. And so we thought, hey, we need more space. So what could be like an offload? Let's go into Scully's, which was like Scully's shares our parking lot. I wonder if Scully's would work with us. Well, we didn't realize, but Mrs. Scully attends our church, right? And so we're like, no way, you come to our church? Like, this is awesome. Can we use your bar to do Sunday service? And she's like, this is all, yeah, that's absolutely. So then we met Mr. Scully, and he's like, this is great. So it worked for a few weeks, but then it didn't work, because at the end of the day, people would rather cram themselves into like the church that's in the same parking lot than apparently like smell, puke, and beer and all the other things that come natural with a place like Scully's, which is fun for a concert. Not so great maybe, I guess, when you're trying to go to church. So we thought it would be a great idea. We put resources behind it. We got a team to launch it, and I don't know, maybe a couple months in, we decided to pull the plug. It just didn't work. But I'm glad that we don't have to wonder about it anymore. Like, can you imagine that if you just look back, man, what if we would have launched a church in a bar? Like, what if we would have done that? We never tried. We don't know. Well, it didn't work. Doesn't mean it's not going to work the next time either. It just means we tried something and it didn't work. Chalk it up to, hey, what did we learn from this? And
well, and the reality though is there may be one person that now attends Rock City because you did try it in the bar. And as you said, it's
absolutely
right. It's for the one or the two, or a family, or a life that was changed, or a story that was reversed, or a score that was changed.
And leaders that stood up, leaders that stepped up in that season. It's like you're launching technically it's a fourth location. You need leadership, you need teams. And so it gave us an opportunity to kind of test run what a fourth location looks like. How do we get 4 worship teams? How do we have 4 campus pastors? How do we, so it allowed us to kind of flex our muscles a little bit and then, kind of settle back down. And I think it's been twice now where we've gone to 4 and then we've come back to 3 locations. We have a location on the east side in Whitehall that we are ready to launch as soon as COVID lifts and we're able to get into the high school. We're ready, but we know what it's going to take now because we've gone 4 back to 3, 4 back to 3, just trying little things. And we've learned. What did we learn? What worked? What didn't? Now this time around, we're confident it's going to be incredible.
All right. I've taken a ton of your time, and there's a million other things we could talk about. There's really, this is probably one of those ones that maybe, and I'm not smart enough to know how to have a live where people are asking questions, because that'd probably be going on crazy right now. I'm sure everybody has a million questions for you, but I am going to rapid fire a few questions if you got a couple more seconds.
Okay, let's do it.
You ready? All right. How many pair of Jordans do you own?
I'll tell you, I've only bought maybe 2 pair full price in my whole life. So I'm an on sale Jordan guy. I probably have 10
pair of Jordans. Do you have like the whole series, or do you have multiple of one?
No, I just get the ones that I think look nice. I had the opportunity to actually go through the Nike, the employee store in Portland. So like I was able to buy, like I have a pair of Kobe's that after Kobe passed, the shoe, I mean, the price of the shoe, it's like up to $700 something. I think I paid $55-$60 for the shoe. So I'm a on sale Jordan purchaser. I think I bought 2 pair full price in my whole life.
Well, it's not critical question. I was just curious because I know you got a lot of, I don't have a pair of J's. I know you got plenty. So
I like them. They're fun.
Here's another one. When the church first started, this is back in the black t-shirt, jeans day, every Sunday. How many black t-shirts did you own?
No, I just did my laundry last night and the whole basket was black. Black socks, black underwear, black t-shirts. I buy my t-shirts from Target. I get them. I think they're called Goodfellow. So you get like a pack of 3 or 4 for like $15. I'm wearing one right now. They're just kind of nice and stretchy. In my closet, I have a stack of probably 30 of the exact same t-shirt. I've lost a lot of weight in the last couple months, so now I've got a stack of 30 extra large, and I've got like a stack of larges growing now. Nice. But if you open up my closet, it's literally just black. Everything.
Awesome. And I'm with you. Clearly, everything, all black, everything. That's pretty much me too. But, and I have not lost a lot of weight the last few months. So, but that's just me. So, all right. favorite interview you've ever done? Because I know we could talk about, and actually, let me just open it wide. What's the most incredible thing you think you've ever done? Because you've seen the world, you've been to Kanye Sunday service, you interviewed Tim Tebow, friends with Urban. What is in your mind? What is just something that you're like, wow, I got to do that?
Well, you mentioned Sunday service.
It's pretty cool.
I never listened to Kanye before Kanye like put out a gospel album. But I really love the Jesus is King album.
Yeah.
I went to a Sunday service in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We're standing in the middle of a field. I'm friends with a pastor who pastors there, and so I got to be like all up close and personal. So we were actually on the inside of the speakers. So the speakers were behind us. We were inside, and everybody was in a circle, and so the choir was just standing right in front of us. And the only way that I can explain it is it felt like a straight old school revival tent meeting. Like, it was wild. It was, if you have a chance to go to a Sunday service, you should. It just was insane.
Yeah.
In a good way. It was like old school tent revival with a smell of weed every once in a while as well. Like, it was like Holy Spirit and weed. But that, it just because of the people that Kanye attracts. So you can say what you want about him. I felt like it was a very genuine Holy Spirit encounter that I had there. So that was pretty wild. And I don't know, I just think anytime that I have a chance to spend time with somebody who has been successful, that has done ministry for a long time, I think probably the coolest thing that I've been able to be a part of is when we took on the Short North campus. There were pastors there, Steve and Wanda, who were in their late 60s. They had no plan for retirement. They put everything that they had into their ministry, and we've been supporting them for a few years, just what they were doing in our city. But when we had the opportunity to be their successors, take over the church that they had, and even help them with their retirement and things, just being generous and kind of taking away that worry away from them, but also bringing them onto our staff, and not just them, but their associate pastors who were pushing 90. Think about this, RockCity.church, right? Like, well, tons of young people, but on our staff we had like 88, 89-year-old couple, and Bob and Lou are their names. Bob passed away a few years ago, but Lou, I think she's 90 today, and Lou still attends every staff meeting. She does counseling in our church. She does marriage counseling. Steve serves on our board of directors now. So they're all still involved. And the reason I think that's so amazing is because that generational impact, what we recognize is that we started a new church, but we didn't start something new. Like the church, Jesus started the church. The church started in the book of Acts when the Holy Spirit was poured out in Acts chapter 2. The church was born. So we're standing on the shoulders of Peter, the disciples, right? We're standing on the shoulders of the Steve and Wandas, the Bobs and Lou's. We're standing on the shoulders of the pastors who pastored in this city before us. And so I don't see anything that God has done through Rock City as like it's because of us. I see that the soil has been tilled, the seeds have been planted, the environment's been set, and we were able to come in and start a church that has experienced tremendous growth and been given enormous opportunity, but it's because others have allowed us to step and stand on their shoulders. And to me, that's just been the most exciting thing. Anytime I have the opportunity to sit down with somebody that's done what I do longer than me, that knows more than me, and most people do know more than me, especially in that elder generation. Like, there's just so much gold there. And like a Steve and Wanda, when you sit and talk to them, I don't think they're 70 yet. They might be 70 now. But when you sit and talk to them, the stories that they're able to tell about this city. We even, I have this book. Just happened. This is wild, man. I just happened to pick this up. This is my great grandfather's book. It's The Real Billy Sunday, right? My great grandfather. And I happened to look down and see this book in my office, and I'd never picked it up before. It was just there for show. And but it was my great grandpa's, so that's there for a reason. And anyway, I pick it up and I look at the front of this book, and there's a chapter in here called The Columbus Reception. And I thought, I wonder if this is like our Columbus, right? So I start reading it. And this guy, this evangelist, Billy Sunday, back in like 1914, came into our city, and he hosted the largest single gathering of people up to that point. It was like 65,000 people in Olentangy Park. 65,000 people came out to hear this man preach. You got Ohio State writing about it, and you've got, you know, all the networks at the time covering it. And anyway, I just thought, this is awesome, right? So I see Steve and Wanda in the office, and I bring the book over to him, and I say, hey, you know, you might appreciate this. And Steve goes, do you have 5 minutes? I can tell you some things. I said, Steve, were you around in 1914? He goes, not quite, but do you have 5 minutes? Well, I say, sure. He starts telling me all about this revival and the roots of the revival. And then he starts naming off all of these influential churches and pastors back from the early 1900s, and who those pastors mentored. Yeah. That are actively engaged in ministry now, or you know, this church, this is where they came from. Their pastor was connected to this pastor was mentored by this pastor. And so he starts drawing kind of these connections to then where we are, and even the church that we were able to revive in Polaris. Like there was a church in Polaris that closed its doors, and they gave their keys to our church, you know. But it's like, if you understand the history, we're not just being handed keys to a building. Right. We're being given the opportunity to build upon ministry that's been happening for 60, 70 years just in one location. Yeah. And then where did that founding pastor come from? And what were those people a part of? And what did their faith look like? And what were their challenges? You start talking to some of these older people in the city about, like, what was it like and where did things come from? It just gives you so much more appreciation for where we are today and what we get to do. So that, honestly, that's my answer. That's the coolest thing. Yeah.
And that is really cool. I mean, that is to have the respect for where those that came before you. And as you know, as you said, standing on those shoulders, and I know you've got a family history too, that you have so much honor and respect for, that really, I think, paved the way for who you are today as well. So, man, we could talk for hours. I think that's probably a good place to because there's so much we didn't cover: prison ministry, you know, international, you know, and I had Nate on, and so he touched on some of those items, but there's a ton of things we haven't even scratched the surface of for Rock City. So I think what I would encourage everyone to, and maybe you have a different idea, I would encourage everyone to get to a service if you can, get online and watch it on TV, go to the website and just dig around a little bit. I mean, everything's transparent. Watch some videos. You know, really, there's so much you and I weren't even able to talk about today, but I do want to respect your time. And I'm so thankful that you would come on. I know you've got Christmas is coming this week, and that's, I'm sure, something you need to prepare for. So anything else you want to leave with everybody, a final thought before we log off?
No, thanks for having me on. You and your family have been great as well. We've known you guys for quite a few years. Like I said, I think you guys were apart, 6 months in, maybe? Do you know? Was it?
No, I told a story when Pete Wilson was on, and ours is pretty remarkable, because we were about to go to Nashville and serve with Pete and his team in Nashville, and we got the call the day that it just wasn't gonna. They went a different direction, and I hung up the phone and I looked at Heather and I said, "What are we gonna do now?" Because there was no church in Columbus like what I had seen in Nashville. And we went out to the mailbox that day. Like right after I hung up the phone, I walked out to the mailbox and I opened the mailbox, and there was this flyer for this church. And being who I am, I came in and I started stalking online, and everything I saw looked just like this church in Nashville that we just found out we weren't going to go and be a part of. And
that's pretty amazing, because you know who designed that website. It was I'm sure it was a like prepackaged website, but I was the church planner, worship leader, pastor, website designer, I don't even know how we got this thing off the ground. Now we've got incredible teams to do that stuff. But if you were digging in anything on our website, that's just amazing we even had one.
No, it really did catch my eye. And then we came for the first week, and then we came for the next one and the next one. And what I told Pete, and I think I've told you before as well, is I think it really boiled down to this. Cross Point caught my eye because there were floods in Nashville. And we've just talked about this, how, the impact that Rock City's had on this city. And maybe we haven't really talked about it even enough. But the floods hit Nashville, and no one, Cross Point stepped up immediately the next day. And like he said, he put out a call, and people were showing up with boats and generators. And he said he just sent out a tweet like, hey, if anybody can help tomorrow, come. 1,000 people show up to help. And I remember watching that from Columbus, just through social media, and saying, that's the kind of church I want to be a part of, because they've earned the right in their city to be there when people needed them. If you haven't done things as a church, I'm preaching a little bit now, but if you haven't done things as a church to earn the right and respect of your city, then when a tragedy happens, you're not going to be the first person they call. It's going to be a government agency right. And we know the red tape, and you've been able to, because of One for One, because of the things that Rock City has done on a consistent basis. You've been there. We have had tragedy hit our city a few times. It's hit Ohio State. It's hit different things. You have been able to, as a church, respond quickly and respond significantly because of the work that you've already done. So I don't know, that was a long rant, but that's what caught my eye.
Because of the work that we've done.
Right.
I just am correcting you. You said you. It's not you, it's we, because you're a part as well.
Oh, all right. Yes, true.
Come on, man.
But at the time,
come on, man. Yeah, at the time, I got you.
At the time, when I looked at it, I said, that is, to your point, that is who we as a family want to be a part of, is because they've earned the right to do it. And that's always been my belief. And it's what I saw on the flyer. It's what I saw, even if it was a bad website, I don't remember, but I did remember seeing
it was a piecemealed website. Can probably $30 to download. Change the colors, add your own text.
Right.
Yep.
Well, it's all been impactful. We're thankful that you're in the city. We're thankful for the many that serve on your team, and the many that come through your doors, the many that have been able to log on TV and watch. And I think whenever this thing clears, there's a whole lot of people that are going to be coming, because I don't think, TV's great. It's wonderful. And for some people, it's more comfortable. That's awesome too. But I think to your point, there's nothing like live. There's nothing like being around other people. And we need to get back to being together again. And I know we're trying, we're fighting through it, but I look for the day when we can all be back shoulder to shoulder, not 6 feet apart, not wearing masks, but just being able to just be there,
Well, I hope I see you on Christmas Eve.
We got our tickets, so
Good.
I don't remember what day or time, or I don't remember what time. I know it's Christmas Eve, but man, I appreciate you. Thanks so much, Chad. We love you and your family. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
And thanks for coming on again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you.
All right, brother. Talk to you.